good afternoon, friends. In the previous session, which was held today, you had been given orientation towards what is a project and what is the life cycle of the project and so on. So, in case of any project, the very first important step which is to be undertaken is the selection of project. Now, when I say selection of the project, it involves number of activities. So I'm going to focus on what are these important activities which one needs to perform or undertake while selecting a project. And let me share the presentation with all of you, and then we can continue with. So, no. Is the presentation okay? Present now your entire screen and share. Okay. I hope the slides are visible now. Anybody who can confirm? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, visible.
Okay. So if the slides are visible, so the title for the session, which I picked up is Project Identification and Selection. And as I said in the beginning, that this is one of the important steps because the kind of project you select will determine whether it will serve any worthwhile purpose for you as an individual, for the organization to which you belong, or to the nation on the whole, or maybe at the global level, you are taking a project. So the worthwhileness of a project depends upon the selection of the project itself. So when we look at the environment in which we are operating, it has been very aptly remarked that the present environment is characterized by four different aspects, and one of the aspects is the volatility. When I say volatility, it refers to the speed of change that takes place. Now, we all have witnessed rapid changes in the economy as a whole, maybe at the global level also, and very recently, that phenomena of COVID-19 was witnessed by all of us. Likewise, if we examine the kind of changes that are taking place in the industry, where cutthroat competition is taking place and value addition is being done by the industry day in and day out to compete with other industries, or if we talk in terms of technology, even the technology is rapidly changing. And that has brought changes in almost every aspect of life. So there are unexpected changes which are happening in the environment at a very fast pace, affecting the life of people in different aspects, whether it is a work environment, whether it is individual personal life or a social life. So changes are happening everywhere. The second thing which we observe is that there is a lot of uncertainty. So we cannot predict the phenomena with confidence. So whether what will be the consequences of a given situation, or when it looks to whether the decisions taken will be right or wrong, there's a lot of uncertainty that is prevailing in the environment. And in addition to that, the situation is quite complex. And the problems being faced by the society, even they are complex and affected by multiplicity of factors which interact among themselves. It is not only one factor that impinge upon a given situation, but multiplicity of factors, and thereby we say that it is an era where the problems cannot be solved with one disciplinary knowledge. Maybe person requires multidisciplinary knowledge, or synergy among disciplines is required to find creative solutions to the problems that exist in the environment. In addition to that, there's a lot of ambiguity also, because there's lack of information about the things. So nothing is clear as far as the environment is concerned. And under this environment, when we're talking about the projects need to be undertaken to mitigate the problems which are adversely affecting the welfare of the people. And there are a number of projects which can be undertaken in different aspects, at the local level, at the regional level, at the national level, at the international level. And project selection includes three important aspects: the project identification, project appraisal, and selection. So when we look at these three, I've just referred to one of the books on project planning and management by Kanda, 2011. And he has given a beautiful description of all these aspects when it comes to project identification. When it comes to project identification, the whole process starts with very systematic need analysis. And once the project is identified, then the project appraisal, and it is in case of industry, very systematic appraisal is taken up, where the people go in for market appraisal, the technical appraisal, the financial appraisal, the economic appraisal, the ecological appraisal, etc. But when it comes to taking up a project by the student, maybe that appraisal is only restricted to a few elements, that is, those are evaluated. Then, if there are in any case competing project proposals for any problem, then the project selection has to be carried out on the basis of maybe the appraisal which has been done, and maybe you need to prioritize which project needs to be undertaken. So project selection, if there are competing project proposals for a given problem. Now, when it comes to project identification, the very first step, the whole process starts with systematic need analysis. And this need analysis, it is, I think, slide makes it clear that it is a gap between the desired state and the current state with respect to large number of variables related to industry or maybe technical education system per se. For example, if I'm talking in terms of industry, maybe the desired state with respect to market share may be one aspect that the industry would like, that it should have 40% of the market share as far as the product is concerned, or the industry that its profit must be around 50% of its revenues. So when it comes to industry, there are a number of parameters on which you can think of setting a benchmark which the industry would like to achieve, or maybe they need to carry out that what is it that is a desired state, that's a benchmark that has been set up by the industry, and what is the existing status. Now, maybe the benchmark is 40% of the market share for a given product, But current state may be that you are able to have 30% or 35% market share. So there is a gap between the desired status and the current status. So that gap need to be identified. And many a times, because of the attitude of indifference which the people adopt, that gap may not be, it is observable, but no action is taken because of the attitude of indifference. And that is too much evident in case of the technical education that exists in the country. Now, there may be, when we talk in terms of that the availability of seats, which institution doesn't set up a benchmark of having 100% admission? So 100% seats need to be filled in. If we look at the pass percentage, higher the percentage, better it is for the institution. Which institution doesn't want that the curriculum of that institution should develop those competencies which are expected of the graduates by the industry? So whether the curriculum is having latest technology, latest courses, and employability of the students increase. So employability, when it comes to the institution, wants maximum number of students to be absorbed by the industry through campus interviews or maybe after they pass out from the institutions. The desired state is always a benchmark fixed by the institution, organization, or the industry. But if we try to examine the current state, all those surveys which are available, whether it is Manpower Research Group survey, with respect to the study which is taken up at the international level, it is said that the employers are dissatisfied with the competencies possessed by the graduates and they are unable to fill in the vacant positions. Likewise, the surveys taken by the CII and the AICT of India, that is the skill report which is available, even that indicate there is a skill gap. So when it comes to that, the kind of competences we are able to develop and the kind of competences required by the industry, there's a gap between. And it is not only the gap with respect to the soft skills, which are very much in demand in the industry, but there's also gap that exists in the knowledge and skill component, technical knowledge and skill component. Now, likewise, when we analyze our whole system, there are a number of problems being faced. And those problems, if we try to analyze, then we'll be able to find that there is deficiency in what should be and what is. Maybe you're talking in terms of the enrollment, employment, the quality of curriculum, the quality of instructional processes in place, and the kind of student engagement we are able to show. So there is a gap. So what is it that NEET analysis tries to identify that gap or the deficiency between what should and what is? So once this NEET analysis is carried out, you are able to identify the gap or the deficiency. Now, from where the idea of a project comes from? First thing is that there are government plans, policies, mission, programs, which are announced on a regular or a continuous basis from time to time. Now, when we look to the government policies and then the policies are to be implemented, missions have been announced by Government of India from time to time. And in 2008, we had seen that the government of India had announced 8 missions. Now, if I just take you to the site of Department of Science and Technology, now here you can see that these were the 8 missions which were announced by Government of India in 2008 with respect to the climate change, which is one of the important uh, uh, SDG also. And then these included National Solar Mission, National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency, National Mission on Sustainable Habitat and Water Mission, then Sustaining the Himalayan Ecosystem, then Mission on for a Green India, Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, and then National Mission on Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change. And for these two of the aspects, that is National Mission for Sustaining Himalayan Ecosystem and Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change, these were given to Department of Science and Technology. Now, if you look at the site itself, you'll agree with me that these missions, their objectives have been clearly specified. Why these 2 missions need to be taken up. And if you go to National Mission on Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change, you will again see that the objectives, very specific objectives, have been identified for the mission. And then National Mission for Sustaining the Himalayan Ecosystem also. Then there are objectives which have been detailed out by this. And this, if these missions are to be accomplished, then the programs are announced by the Department of Science and Technology and they call for proposals. So the basis of having a project, once the need has been identified, comes from the national missions and the programs which are floated or announced by the ministries, respective ministries. It is not only Department of Science and Technology, but other ministries which are involved in implementation of these missions. From time to time, they try to invite. Now, here you can see that the programs and initiatives which have been undertaken, they include establishing the Center of Excellence, state climate change centers, national network programs, major R&D programs, then human capacity building programs, global technology watch groups, then vulnerability assessment at state and district level, then international collaborations to be forged. Now, all these programs which are announced, they form the basis for having an idea about the project. We need not start afresh, but we can always bank upon the rationale, the objectives specified, and the programs which are specified. Accordingly, one can select a project. Now, this is the very first thing which formed the basis for having an idea about the project. And if we just look at these government policies, then you will all agree at present the government of India has accepted these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which were announced by the UN in 2015. Now, if you look at the very first, the Sustainable Development Goals, it's with respect to no poverty. Now, when you say no poverty, what is the exact status at present? Now, COVID-19 has led to pushing additional 8 million workers to poverty. Now, this is a report which is available on Sustainable Development Goals. And it also says that the working poverty has risen to 7.2% for the first time in the last 2 decades. Now, if we just go by this, it itself speaks volume, and there can be number of things which can be done to bridge the gap to improve the welfare of well-being of the people and reduce the poverty that exists in different. Now, I'm talking in terms of international figures here, and the war which has started between Ukraine and Russia, that has actually led to inflation and has disaster related deaths. They have risen sixfold times. Now, even this is giving you that the deaths have risen, then they have inflation is due to the war which is there between the Ukraine and the Russia. And at present, these deaths are the result of the pandemic. And there are unemployment cash benefits which are provided to the people. They have also shown increase from 2.2% to almost 8%. Now, this is just with respect to one SDG. The second SDG also provides you idea about that every government needs to end hunger. So zero hunger is the policy which is adopted, or it is the sustainable development goal which has been set. But again, due to the three factors, that's the conflicts among the nation, COVID-19, and the climate change, has increased the inequalities that exist. And food security has become a major issue these days. And it is said that 1 in 10 persons, they don't have, they are suffering from hunger. They don't have access to the food. Now, this is a situation which exists, and 149.2 million children under the age of 5, they have suffered and gone in for stunting. Just see, 149.2 million children below the age of 5 years. And 47% of the countries in the world, they have suffered because of the high rising food prices. And this is primarily because Russia and Ukraine, they have been primarily adding to the wheat, and Ukraine, wheat and maize, they have been adding, and it has also affected the food availability to the people in the region. Then third, if you look at the green, it is the good quality water and the well-being. Now, when we say good quality water and the well-being, you can see that at present, the good quality of water again is not available to all people, and it is said that 1/6 of the people population doesn't have access to potable or drinking water. If this is the scenario which exists, and even in India, we witness that there are still regions where the people have to go a long way to fetch the water for the daily course. If we have seen the Yamuna, that is the most polluted river now in India, and we have seen in the Chhat Puja, there was froth in the river, but the women were doing their puja in that froth only. That's one where, and we have seen that wherever the water is available, the quality of water is very poor. Then quality of education, it is said that the pandemic has deepened the global learning crisis. And 147 million children, they missed over half of in-person instruction during the COVID time, especially 2020 and 21. And the report clearly indicates that it is projected that 24 million learners may never return to schools, may never return. Now, this is because of the COVID, which has been experienced by all of us, and we all have shifted to online teaching during during the COVID-19, and it was a sheer challenge for the faculty to organize online classes. And the quality really suffered because of the low engagement of learners, and the practical work especially suffered the most during that time. And it is said that many countries are improving school infrastructure because they have experienced lack of electricity, drinking water, and basic sanitation facilities. They lack. Not, and the quality, I have already said, the quality of education, we all know that there are problems with various aspects of the education system, whether it is curriculum, whether it is instructional processes, or whether these are in terms of the physical resources or information resources or technology resources or energy resources. So then maybe with respect to the management, maybe with respect to the collaboration with the industry and so on. Then you can see the gender equality is another sustainable development goal. Just give me a minute. I think I have to gender equality. We have missed, and it is said that when it comes to the employment rate, the women suffers the most. When it comes to the wages, lower wages are given to the women, higher wages to the men. And when it came to the COVID, the retrenchment which took place, that was more with respect to the women in the workforce, and they were retrenched to a large extent. Now, this is a scenario, and if you look to the top political leadership, the participation of women is not even satisfactory. And we don't have many leaders, or we don't have women who occupy the leadership positions in various organizations and the institutions. This is a phenomenon which is experienced world over, that women's participation is not as per expectations or as per the benchmarks. Then if we look to the sixth mission, it is the available management of water and sanitation for all. And we all know that our ecosystem, water-related ecosystem, over 85% of the planet is the resources, water resources have been lost. The wetlands have been lost. Now, this is what the report is talking about. And sanitation facilities do not exist, right? And in India, we have seen that the government has laid more focus on creating these sanitation facilities, but much needs to be developed. And when it comes to the number 7, if we go by, it is with respect to inclusive quality education. I have said this is healthy lives and well-being for all. So this is again where we find that there are problems with respect to the mortality rates, death rates, and the people who are getting the medical facilities, or we are looking at during the COVID time, what kind of medical facilities were available to the people in different countries of the world. And it has been said in the report that 22.7 million children missed basic vaccine in 2020. And it has been said that pandemic claimed the life of 1,15,500 frontline healthcare workers during the pandemic. And there was rise in tuberculosis deaths on account of tuberculosis. Now, this is a scenario that exists. And then if you go by that, the next one, if you look at the sustainable development goal with respect to sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Now, here we are talking in terms of that the economic recovery at the global level has been hampered by, again, this has been account of the COVID. And when we are talking in terms of now new wave of COVID is coming up, and then there is rising inflation, and there has been disruptions which have been observed in supply chain. So when it comes to the global unemployment, so it has increased. And when it comes to global economic recovery, there is further setback by the Ukraine crisis, which has been observed. Child labor is prevalent, and 160 million children are working. What we talk of the economic growth, full and productive employment, even the children need to work. And it is said 1 in 10 children are engaged, and worker productivity is not, in the low developed countries, it is not satisfactory. And it is also said when it comes to reducing inequality within and among countries. So the inequality has further risen on account of pandemic. And there has been a lot of migrations taking place, and it is said that 5,895 migrants lost their lives in 2021. It is said that global refuge figure hits recorded high because of the war in Ukraine and Russia. Now, this is where the problems are existing. And the next one pertains to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization. And again, it has been said that the low developed countries are left behind, and small scale industry lack access to financial support and recovery. And higher technology industries are far more resilient in crises than the lower technology counterparts. And 1 in 3 manufacturing jobs are negatively impacted by the crisis. Now, these are some of the major features which I am sharing with you. And then the next is with respect to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And here we find that in the globe, 1 billion slum dwellers are there. And 99% of the world's urban population breathe polluted air, what to talk of others. And there is like solid waste, and managing that waste is a big problem with the countries in different regions. This is the scenario overview. Then the next one is ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. And it has been said the consumption pattern and the production patterns, they are unsustainable. And there are crises due to climate change, biodiversity loss. These are the main. Then too much food is being lost or wasted. It is not being properly utilized. And then 17% of the total food is wasted at wherever it is grown, at that level, it is wasted. Then vast majority of the world's electronic waste is not being safely managed. Then 65% globally from 2000, this is natural resources, our reliance on natural resources is increasing. Now, why I'm just sharing this, likewise, you will see that for climate change and its impact, and that we have seen that carbon dioxide, there is energy-related carbon dioxide emission, they have increased by 6%. Then we are seeing that temperature changes are happening in different regions and the weather has become too unpredictable. And then we look to that global temperatures that we have taken up. So climate change has become a major issue with the various countries. Then it is said that the ocean, the life below the water, conserve and sustainability use the ocean, sea, and marine resources for sustainable development. Let me not go into details of this, but if we try to analyze, and I would say most of you might have read this Sustainable Development Report 2022. So it is trying to provide you what should be and what is. So it is also telling you the problems that exist with respect to these sustainable development goals. And now you are able to see some of the arrows here, and it has said that moderate increase is being shown where you find an arrow going upward. The improvement has been stagnated wherever you find a horizontal yellow arrow, and there is a decline with respect to, here you can see in this case there is a decline. So this is where we find that in case of India, the situation is, in case of 11 of the sustainable development goals, we have not made much progress. So the first thing which we need to look into to generate idea for a project is the plans, policies, missions, and programs. Then comes the technology trends. Technology is fast changing, and we all know that it has brought changes in the way we work, we live, we interact with others, we communicate to others, etc. And in industry, wherever we're talking, changes are happening at a very fast pace. And let me just share with you that when it comes to, let me just skip this, civil engineering. Now, due to the technological change, new things are happening. We are coming across areas which are fast emerging, the earthquake-resistant buildings, the fire-resistant building, the self-healing concrete, the energy-efficient building, the cost-effective construction, the modular construction, the IoT in construction, intelligent and smart cities. Maybe in civil engineering, these are some of the emerging areas where the work needs to be carried out. And likewise, you can see for the electrical engineering. And when it comes to all these areas, you can see when we talk of the high efficiency photovoltaic cells, because of the renewable energy resources. But the cost is too high. So this is where we would like to go in for, where we have cost efficient and high efficiency voltaic cells. We are talking in terms of electric vehicles, but then there are problems in number of aspects. Maybe we're talking in terms of the batteries, the battery life, and so on. We're talking of batteries, recharging stations, and so on, raw replaceable batteries, and so on. So wearable devices, wireless charging, smart grid to save the have the very effective and efficient electricity management systems and smart lighting. So the movements of wastage you can stop. Then artificial intelligence for image processing, or we have seen during COVID that there have been many applications of the AI and medical robotics, augmented reality, virtual reality. We have seen the applications of this. Mechanical engineering against few areas. You can think of robotics, Internet of Things, nanotechnology. Now we are talking of 5D printing, going beyond 4D printing, smart manufacturing, and additive manufacturing, along with it, CAD CAM, cyber physical system, and augmented reality. And just let me share that these, before I, okay, let me go to that. This is one area, technology things. And another is that we need to make observations of the environment around. And for example, here you will see that the graphics which are here, a person who is moving with crutches. Now, the person without even the assistive technology or the waste, which is, and whenever we enter Delhi, we can see that Kura mountain, which is there in the beginning of Delhi. And that itself, if you try to observe, you can identify the projects which need to be undertaken. And here is the pollution, which is, and there is emission which takes place from thermal plants, the industries, etc. The froth in Yamuna, as I said. Then we have recently, we have seen in Uttarakhand, not earthquake, but we have seen that so many people have to leave their homes because of the cracks that have appeared in their residential buildings because of the work going on in the mountains. Then you have in Odisha, this was where the tiger reserve burning was there for a week long. It was more than a week. Kerala floods, we have seen volcanoes. All these. That means many things we can, the idea can come from the observation of environment. Only thing is that observation has to be critical, and one has to try to further take it up, not just observe and adopt an attitude of indifference, but convert that idea into a plan of action and implement to improve upon the existing situation. Then the past research literature which is available, that itself can provide you or throw light on what remains to be done, which are the areas for further research. And you can think of the project. So the literature, which is journal articles, books, encyclopedias, handbooks, newspapers, etc., etc. Then internet resources which are available, expert opinion. So when you interact with experts, they also give their opinion with respect to what needs to be done to improve upon the existing situation. So that may give you an idea of taking up a project or interaction with the others and community industry on the whole that can provide you ideas. Then All India Council for Technical Education have organized hackathons, and there they have assembled the problems which are faced by the industry and other organizations, and then you have been sending teams of students to deal with those problems. So they take up a small projects. So once this competition, the problems itself that a bank is available can throw light on what needs to be done. then websites of the industries and the organization. So the project idea can come from anywhere, right? And from anyone who's a part of the industry or organization or a member of the society. Now, when you look at these things, the problems may result in different types of projects which can be taken up. And I'm just referring to this example from Indian Institutes of Technology, Bombay. So IIT, I just took this, that all these problems, SDGs, plans, now they have identified some of the projects to be undertaken and they have set up a separate cell. So analytical studies may be one area, calibration of the machinery, tools may be another area, cause and remedy studies can be there, simulation modeling for optimization can be there, or design of systems, components, processes, or development of industrial products and systems, or development of software applications, then development of laboratories may be one of the projects which can be taken up, depending upon the latest areas which are emerging in a particular field. Maybe you are talking in terms of setting up a cloud computing or virtual reality lab or augmented reality lab and so on, or human resource development for building the capacity of the individual, and testing of industrial products and samples, validation of designs and drawings may be another. So if we look at industry, all these efficiency, effectiveness, profits, market share, HR development, processes which are in place, these may be, the projects may be related to any one of them, right? So then the project is that the first step is that you take the need analysis, then the ideas are to be generated. Now, this generation of ideas is followed by screening and evaluating idea. So, a variety of techniques can be used to generate ideas. And it is rightly remarked that no problem is too big, no idea is too small. So, when it comes to generation of ideas with respect to mitigating the adverse effects or enhancing the collaboration between the industry or enhancing the market share of an industry, the first one of the techniques which is most widely used is the brainstorming. Brainstorming involves generation of ideas with deferred judgment. That is, a small group of people, they are involved in the process of generating ideas where a round robin technique is used and idea is taken up one by one from each individual, and this process continues till the ideas are no more available with the group. This is that no evaluation is carried out immediately when the idea is given. So there is free flow of idea. Any weird idea given by a member is taken up. And then once the ideas have been generated, then a small committee is constituted to evaluate the ideas. Likewise, brain writing. So people keep on writing the ideas that come in their mind, and then all those slips are taken up. Then nominal group technique is another technique which is used. Attribute listing is another where, say for example, if you want to have a product, say the mobile phone, and you list the attributes of mobile phone, and then you use the technique of once you list, then you can find out where the changes can be made in those attributes. Then scamper is where you have the list. So what can be added, what can be subtracted, what can be magnified, what can be minimized. All these things, these are taken up. This is another technique which can be used for generation of ideas. Then analogies are used to generate ideas. Now it is for creative problem solving also analogies are being used, where maybe a boss and the lion. So the people try to generate the similarities and the characteristics, and then they come out with new novel ideas of bringing improvements in the leadership maybe. So analogies. So these techniques are used to generate ideas. Once the ideas are generated, then some of the techniques which can be used to evaluate the ideas. So one is that ALUOs. This is a technique which is referred to as advantage, limitations, unique qualities, overcoming limitations. This is where for each idea, this is generated. Evaluation matrix is where you try to evaluate the idea with respect to certain criteria. Then highlighting how many of the people have given that idea. So highlighting those ideas which have been given by maximum number of people. Then must versus wants. So what comes under must and what comes under wants. Then peer comparison analysis include comparing each idea with another idea, right? So out of the two, which is more important, and then finally a score is calculated. So I'm not going into these details. Selecting hits, then short versus medium versus long term. So what benefits are likely to accrue. So these are variety of techniques which can be used to evaluate ideas, and whatever technique is used, on the basis of, then prioritization is done. And then the idea which has the maximum score, if they are competing, so that can be taken up, right? And here when it comes to the industry, they try to take up what kind of investment would be required. What will be the rate of return on that investment? Then what is the risk involved? Is it that there is a high risk or a moderate risk, or there is a low risk? Because a number of projects, because of if they have high risk, then industry is not going for that. It is ready to take up those ideas where they can have high rate of return with low risk. Then likely profit. So again, high, moderate, and low you can think of. So wherever the profit will be more, that may be one of the criterion to take up that idea. Expected life of the product or the service, that's another. Then flexibility, how quickly the changes can be made. And then environment impact. So how it is going to affect the air or the water or the social environment of the people, or technology environment. What will be the impact on the technological environment in the industry itself? Okay. Then competition. So is there a competitor? So whether it is going to increase their competition or it is going to reduce their competition, and is there any likelihood that any other industry will immediately switch on to that and provide a very tough competition to the industry? So competition is another variable which can be taken as a criterion for selecting the idea. Then effectiveness, that's whether you'll be able to achieve your objectives or not, and ease of implementing the idea. So these may be some of the criteria which can be taken up. Now, if we are talking in terms of that as a teacher, we are looking at the student project, then maybe we are not going into all these details and not going in for evaluating ideas more rigorously, but we are more concerned with its novelty, that whether it's a original idea, some unique idea which has come up, whether it will throw some challenge to the learner and student need to put in effort to achieve the objectives, whether it is relevant to the program, relevant to the context, and it is going to yield certain benefits to the individual, to the organization, to the institution, or to the society at large, then whether the idea is implementable, whether the student will be able to complete the project within the specified period of time, whether the student has the resources to implement that, right? Whether student has the capability also, whether student has the desired level of knowledge, skills, and other traits which are degraded, maybe communication, maybe leadership, maybe ability to work in team. So whether student has the capability, then the resources within the institution accessible to the learner, or maybe in the society which are forthcoming, or are there no resources, or the industry is going to provide the resources to the learner for that matter. Time frame. So that these are some of the criteria which can be taken into account while we try to evaluate the idea of the projects. Many of our projects are repetitive in nature, and students sometimes go to the market and bring ready-made projects and submit. So that practice should be avoided, and we should look into that the student carry out the project under the supervision of the teacher in the lab or the workshop, or under the supervision of the industry personnel, to avoid these things, right? Then comes the project goals and project. Once you are able to select the project, next step is to set the goal and the objectives of the project. And here you will see, when I say project goal and objective, goal is always broader, right? And these are broad statements regarding the intent. That means if a need is there, to fill that need. If there is a deficiency, you remove that deficiency. Or if you talk in terms of a solved problem, you solve that problem, right? So it is a broad statement regarding the intent of the project. I'll just give you examples. And this project goals need to be stated very clearly and communicated to all members of the project who are going to implement. Now here are a few examples of the goals. Now when you say the technical institutions, and you are not happy with the kind of collaborations we have, and you have identified that project area you would like to enhance collaboration. So just translate into the words to enhance collaboration among, collaboration between academia and industry. The very first one is with respect to the collaboration among institutions, because no institution at present is able to meet the ever-changing demands of the technology. So if we have 4 to 5 institutions within the same city, can they collaborate with that? Or it is in the vicinity, can we collaborate with other institutions too? So how do we enhance collaboration among institutions? Then to enhance teaching effectiveness through training to faculty, or to sensitize the learners to the problems of community and industry. Maybe you take up a small project or assign a project to your students to go to the community, identify the problems being faced by them, and then out of the problems enlisted, you try to find a map which are related to their own discipline. Maybe if a civil engineer, can he take up with respect to the water, sanitation, or construction, or the roads, and so on. If he's an electrical engineer, can think of the availability of electricity, use of renewable energy sources, etc., etc. So one can think of, to increase the market share, maybe the industry, to enable undergraduate, postgraduate students to address real world societal problems by developing practical Internet of Things solutions using the Arduino and Raspberry Pi platform. Now, this is I've taken up from Dehradun Institute of Technology, where they have established a center of excellence for Internet of Things. So this is the why they have set up. The goal is very clear. Another one, they have set up a center for advanced functional smart material lab. And for that also you can see. So the goal is a broad statement of the intent to fill in the deficiency or to solve a problem that exists, right? And here you can see project objectives, on the other hand, are more specific. Now, when I say specific, that means they use verb, and that verb clearly indicates what behavior will be or what action will be demonstrated. And the action that is demonstrated is observable and measurable. So then these objectives are agreed upon by the project team members or project team and the management. So there is total agreement with respect to the project objectives. And these are realistic. That means realistic to the context, and realistic that they are achievable, attainable. And these are time framed because each project has a start time and the end time. So these are time framed. So within which time? Maybe, for example, I have taken up a project to set up an III, that is Industry Institute Interaction Cell at the Institute. So when the proposal will be? So the first thing is the formulation of a project proposal. So how much time it is going to take up? So then approval. When the approval will be is expected, within 1 week, 2 weeks, or 10 days. Then when the institute start, the cell would start functioning, if those are all time framed. Then here you can have look at that the project goal is to enhance collaboration between academia and industry. Now this needs to be translated into the project objectives. So I've just generated 5 objectives here. So first thing one has to do is to identify the relevant industry. So which are the programs being offered by the institution? Which are the industries which are relevant to my the programs being offered by the institution? Then to identify the activities of mutual benefit, where the industry will have interest and where the institution will have interest. And then institution is interested in involving the industry in its various aspects, maybe design and development of the curriculum, involvement in instructional processes, student assessment, research, management. So where you would like to have maybe your board of governors, you would like to have the industry representation. Maybe once you take up research projects, you would like to have one industry personnel as a member, supervisor or a guide. Or maybe you take up a collaborative research, sponsored research by the ministries or the All India Council for Technical Education and so on. Then to undertake research and consultancy to solve industry problem. So academia needs to provide that kind of service to the industry. So to offer continuing education training programs for industry and for industry personnel. So maybe the diploma holders, you have a program to update, upskill them. Maybe they can go in for those modularized programs, or they can think of long-term program whereby they improve upon their qualification, going to bachelor's, then going to master's and so on. So you open up that arena for them. Or you have a distance learning program, or you have an executive program, executive leadership program for the industry personnel. Then so You can think of here, it is not mentioned who will take. Maybe students can take up some projects to solve problems of industry, or faculty can take problems, and so on. If you go by industry institute interaction cells, you are trying to establish at your institute level, maybe these are some of the specific objectives. So, develop educational programs which are consistent with broad requirements of the industry. Create adequate facility for updating of professional engineers and technologists. So, then to coordinate the research and development activities of the two system. Now, this I picked up from State Knowledge Management Center for Climate Change. You can see the goal was to integrate climate change concerns into development planning process. Now see how the objectives translate. So if you are very clear about the steps which are used, you can simply state the objectives of that. So to connect science with policy and practice, to carry out research studies on climate change, to formulate and implement pilot projects on CC, climate change adoption aspects, organize training and capacity building, provide scholarships and internships to create strategic knowledge networks. Very, very specific. So 6 specific objectives for the project. Then if it is a project taken up by the industry, then project appraisal is very specific with respect to market appraisal, technical appraisal, financial appraisal, economic and ecological appraisal. Not in going detail. Then market appraisal, you can see the criteria which can be there: aggregate future demand, market share, current and future competition, location and accessibility of customers, technological scenario, and possible pricing options which are available to any industry or the organization. And technical appraisal will be with respect to engineering aspects, location, size, and production processes which are in place. Financial appraisal may be with respect to the cash flows, profitability, break-even point, net present worth, internal rate of interest, and so on. The risk also is there. Economic with respect to costs and benefits. So you can see distribution of income in society, level of saving and invest, self-sufficiency, employment, and social order. Ecology would be with respect to environment damage it may cause, then restoration measures which need to be taken up. So if there are, the third aspect was with respect to the project selection, and that I said if you have the competing proposals for any single specific problem, then the industry may go in for project selection by going in for decision matrix on a multiple criteria. So the criteria here you can see it may include financial, technological, economic, etc. And then decision matrix is prepared, and then the calculated score, and the highest score person, they'll get the project. So this is, I think, a brief about what is involved in project identification, project appraisal, and project selection. And in other words, we can say this is the phase which is referred to as project initiation phase. And it involves these 3 important